morning, everyone. I am RJ named Siga from BECED Science 2C, and I am the reporter for today.
For this report, I'm gonna discuss to you about the American essay and man will prevail. So our learning objectives is about to define what is American essay and to know the meaning of man will prevail. So American essay. So American literature refers to the body of written or literary works shaped in the history of the United States and its former colonies. So tracing back America's history, America was once under the rule of Britain as part of the latter's colonies. Therefore, its literary institution is associated to the expansive tradition of English literature. So, however, American literature is now considered a separate course and institution because of its one-of-a-kind American characteristics and the production of its literature. So, literature has actually gone through lots of phases and was impacted by excellent events and concepts in American history. The earliest kind of literature in what would one day be referred to as America were far from what contemporary individuals would think about literature. So the natives who inhabited this land initially had unwritten methods of handing down experiences, beliefs, and stories. So locals relied heavily on the spoken telling of these stories to younger generations. So the same stories, myths, or belief structure were told consistently, each time similar to the last, and were memorized by the listeners so they would have the ability to pass this on to the next generation. So what do you mean by the natives? So the natives, or it means today Native American literature, or also called Indian literature or American Indian literature, is the traditional oral and written literatures of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. So this include ancient hieroglyphic and pictographic writings of Middle America, as well as an extensive set of folktales, myths, and oral histories that were transmitted for centuries by storytellers and that live on in the language works of many contemporary American Indian writers. So American literature comprises all the written works produced in the United States and its preceding colonies. So American literature is very important for the education of people as it reveals the culture and history of the United States. So moreover, American literature studying in other countries gives foreigners the opportunity to get to know American culture, history, and great works of the great authors better. So American literature is an essential discipline in most of the universities, colleges, and schools. So students are usually asked to write a lot of different writing assignments to check their understandings of the literary work, develop their writing skills, and broaden their background knowledge. So a lot of students can face some problems with such tasks as not everybody has a talent to express his thoughts and ideas about another text properly. So like other national literatures, American literature was shaped by the history of the country that produces. So for almost a century and a half, America was merely a group of colonies scattered along the eastern seaboard of the North American continent. So colonies from which a few hardy souls tentatively ventured westward. So along the eastern seaboard of the North American continent. So colonies from which a few hardy souls tentatively ventured westward. So after a successful rebellion against the motherland, America became the United States, a nation. So the importance of American essays. So American literature pushed the boundaries of human imagination and creativity with their constant experimentation of emotions and thoughts, which can be attributed to the contemporary writer's attitude of artistic expression and freedom. It developed writers of different genres experimenting human emotions, philosophy, and psychology. It also gave way to, to the dark romanticism subgenre, which portrays human beings as individuals prone to sin and self-destruction. Over time, American literature evolved into various forms of fiction and non-fiction categories, illustrating writers' sentiments on matters concerning politics, economy, culture, social statuses using artistic imagery or factual resources. So American literature further developed into its own form, growing away from its initial sphere of influence, English literature during the 17th century, creating a unique American characteristic and promoting individualism. So let's go to The Man Will Prevail. So in his December 10, 1950 Nobel Prize acceptance speech, William Faulkner said, I decline to accept the end of man. It is easy enough to say that man is immortal simply because he will endure, that when the last ding-dong of doom has clanged and faded from the last worthless rock hanging tideless in the last red and dying evening, that even there will still be one more sound, that of his funny, inexhaustible voice is still talking. I refuse to accept this. I believe that man will not merely endure, he will prevail. So in December 10 of 1950, William Faulkner was awarded a Nobel Prize in Literature, his acceptance speech titled The Writer's Duty. So Faulkner's post-World War II speech targets young writers and persuades them to see the importance of literature. So he strategically arranges the speech, chooses specific stylistic elements to use, and appeals to his audience in many ways to achieve his purpose of inspiring young writers. So he is immortal not because he alone among creatures has an inexhaustible voice, but because he has a soul, a spirit, capable of compassion and sacrifice and endurance. The writer's duty is to write about these things. It is his privilege to help man endure by lifting his heart, by reminding him of the courage and honor and hope and pride and compassion and pity and sacrifice which have been the glory of his past. The poet's voice need not merely be the record of man. It can be one of the props, the pillars to help him endure and prevail. So this speech accepting the Nobel Prize in Literature demanded writers be mindful of what is important as humankind face atomic anxieties and fears. So the speech was a declaration that despite of humanity's dilemma, we would not only survive, we would prevail. So by the way, what do you mean by prevail? So prevail means to successfully someone of something. So the speech was a declaration, again, that despite of humanity's dilemma, we will not only endure, we would prevail. So the speech also targets the young writers and persuades them to see the importance of literature. So that would be all my report about the American essay and Man Will Prevail. So once again, this is Marva Jane M. Siga from BS Edi Science 2C. Thank you everyone and God bless us all.